Would you like to invest your hard-earned money with a stockbroker that actually loses money every single year? I didn't think so. Neither do I. But for us as private investors, it's very difficult to gauge with a lot of private stockbrokers whether they are profitable or not. Some are more transparent than others, but technically they do not need to report this. And that's why in this video, I actually want to focus on stock-listed stockbrokers. Yes, indeed. Some stockbrokers can actually be traded on the stock market like you would trade any other company like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. They are also publicly listed. And for me, that just gives extra credibility because obviously they go through even more scrutiny to get to the place to be publicly traded. And more importantly, they, like any other company, need to transparently show their results, their income, their profits, their custom numbers on a, usually in the US at least, quarterly basis, some other places like Europe and elsewhere, maybe on an annual basis. But still, we as investors can then go into these reports and see whether they're actually profitable, right? Because quite frankly, for me, that's encouraging to see and keep my money with a broker that's thriving and doing well. Because as great as it is to have a zero commission fee broker that charges next to nothing, at the same time, if they're not profitable long term, our money could potentially be at risk with them. So for me, that just is another added plus. I thought it would be interesting to show you how many of the big brokers that we know and talk about often are actually publicly traded. Again, this is not investing advice. Whether you want to invest in them, that's your personal choice. Personally, I don't invest in any of the stockbrokers, but it's great to see them, see how they develop, how the customer numbers are growing. And I like the transparency of it and also hear from the CEO and the management board about the direction of the companies. Right, with this, let's jump over to TipRanks, which is a new tool I recently discovered and started using. I absolutely love it because while I still use Seeking Alpha and it's absolutely amazing, the cool thing is with TipRanks, it's really a global stock analysis platform because I struggle with Seeking Alpha that they not really have so much information on European stocks or, basically any stock outside the US. Here you really get that. And I'll show you some of the stocks we talk about today are actually outside the US. So here you get much more insights and really nice overview of AI analytics and so forth. So let's start off with the big daddy of stockbrokers, which is of course Interactive Brokers. And the funny thing is, a lot of people say, what does IBKR stand for? Well, in fact, it's actually the ticker symbol. If you see over here, IBKR, it's basically Interactive Brokers. And that's what we want to look at. And it's really the granddaddy of stockbrokers. They have been around the longest. I think by now they are arguably one of the largest, if not the largest stockbroker in the world. They're available in pretty much all the countries. I've been using them for many years. Can really recommend them. Obviously made a number of videos about them. So yeah, very, very solid, trusted stockbroker. And once again, the fact that they're stock listed, I just love it because I can follow the broker. I can see their revenues and how they're performing. And actually, if you would have invested in them, look at that performance over a 3-year period, up 262%. Over a 5-year period, up 434%. Unbelievable. We'll come to this, how it performed versus the S&P in a moment. But yeah, overall, you see some smart score over here. And yeah, I like overall really also the interface of TipRanks. So definitely, if you want to check it out, I have a link down in the description below where you can get a 40% discount on the premium plan, which basically gives you unlimited access to all of those reports and insights. On the free plan, I think you only get 2 or 3. For me, it's always important to look at market cap, right? How big is a company? Just as a benchmark, the most valuable company in the world right now is Nvidia at $4.3 trillion. So keep that in mind. While here we are still under $100 billion at only $28 billion. And yeah, keep that number in mind because I'll show you a little bit later another broker which is significantly higher despite them being arguably much smaller size in terms of overall business. But that's just how sometimes companies are being valuated in the market. They also do pay a dividend yield, which is nice for anyone investing in dividends. So you get less than 1%, but still a nice little passive income over time. And of course, I quite like here this overview, what the bulls are saying, the bears are saying, overall the client interest in global market presence. I think that's really one of the strongest points of Interactive Brokers, that they're available virtually in any country. The other day somebody wrote on my Interactive Brokers video, is it available also in Liberia? And I had no idea. I looked it up and actually it is available even in Liberia. So they're really globally present. Now in terms of technology and competitive advantage, I don't know. I think they are improving. Is it a nice interface and so forth? I would say not, but anyhow, it is what it is. But yeah, then again, also, it's nice to see what the bears are saying. People are basically a bit worried about the stock going forward. Earnings and revenues has been lowered due to reduced trading volume and margin. And we see that over here, obviously, in the revenue. Also haven't, really grown massively over time. So that's also something to keep in mind. I really also like this earnings call sentiment. And of course, you get the technical analysis, what they're saying about the company. But let's go, for example, also into the ownership, see who's owning it. And in terms of insiders, not too many. 1.6% are insiders, rest is mutual funds. And then, of course, you see a big part is ETF providers. These are the BlackRocks, Vanguards of the world. When you invest into a specific ETF, you would be investing also into Interactive Brokers. And in case you're wondering, yes, Interactive Brokers is also part of the S&P 500 now. So I think that just adds even more credibility. So even if you're not directly investing into Interactive Brokers, like I'm not, basically through my S&P 500 investments, I'm still in a way invested into interactive brokers. Then I quite like that they also show you recent insider trading. That's always something I look at too. What are the insiders doing, right, with their money? Because they work in the company, they know whether the company is expensive or not, and then they either sell or not. But again, also always take it with a grain of salt, because some of those, they have specific dates by when they can, take profits, right? And a lot of them may not have the high salary, but they get a lot of their money paid in shares. So obviously, if they want to make a big purchase like a house or new car, whatever, eventually they need to liquidate some of their shares. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they think the price is extremely high and they take profits. Sure, they wouldn't take the profits if they thought the company was extremely undervalued, right? They would probably hold on a little bit longer. But not necessarily just because they sell means the company is going to drop in price. So take it with a grain of salt, but it's still nice to see overall, what insiders in the company are doing. And for me, what I really like over here is the AI stock analysis, because, there's so many details and numbers that a lot of those platforms do provide us with, but sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. And here you see really nicely consolidated the main things you should be aware about, right? Obviously, the revenue growth is still growing, but at the same time, in terms of cryptocurrency markets, their exposure is kind of limited, which some investors do like, right? Because they don't want to be exposed too much to cryptocurrency. On the other hand, as crypto grows in importance and valuations around the world over time, their lack of crypto exposure on the platform might also work against them. So again, it's just something to keep in mind. And obviously, I'm not doing a deep dive here into which stocks you should be buying of all the stockbrokers, but just to go to show you that you get all that information that we previously didn't have with the private stockbrokers. Compared to the S&P 500 over here, S&P over 5 year grew by 108%, while IBKR grew by more than 4 times that. So really mind-boggling numbers, especially in the last few years, it really took off. And that's what I mean. That's one of the KPIs I always like to look at, the total customer accounts. You want to see the growth over here, right? That's really, really important. We can also change it to revenue by segment, see where the revenues are coming from, even the interactive brokers call summary. So you can listen to the brokers call analysis and sentiment of the call, right? Where they summarize, what the management team was saying, what is going well, and so forth, without having to listen to an over 1 hour long call, which you can if you want to. And if I was invested in the company, I would definitely recommend you. I use an app called Quarter, where you can basically on your phone listen to the earnings calls of the company of your choice, free of charge, on the go. And then, of course, you see the P&L, right? That's kind of all we want to see. Is the company profitable? How have profits developed over time? Net income has been growing nicely. That's what we want to see as investors. I know that my money is safe, right? Because honestly, we know a lot of the private companies, when they start off, they have some crazy, free stock promotions and what have you, but that actually eats into their profitability. And a lot of them are loss leaders, meaning they're not profitable. And that's not what we want to have as investors into the platform. And of course, here then we compare it also with some of the competitors that we come to, even though I don't want to focus on all of them because they're not that much retail oriented, right? For example, Goldman Sachs. I doubt any of you watching is actually using Goldman Sachs to invest. That's not really a very common stockbroker as such. Right, with this, we move to the second stockbroker that I'm also using myself. I use interactive brokers and eToro, so I was really happy when they recently also became stock-listed stockbroker in the US. They were already previously listed elsewhere, but now they're listed also in the US, which obviously adds more credibility to it. And of course, ultimately also more money flowing into the company because, once they're listed in the US, naturally, they're going to get more investment, more interest, ETF money flowing into it, which is, I think, long-term only good for the company. Now, they launched only a couple of months ago. If we go over here, I think they launched sometime May this year, so not so long ago. And since then, it's been a little bit of a rocky start. I mean, down 33%. Again, it's not a company I'll be investing in my own money, but I'm happy to keep my money with them. I think as a broker, they're really doing a great job and have really improved over time. But yeah, in terms of market capitalization, when we compare it to previously interactive brokers, it was, I even forgot the number now, but I think around 28 billion, just shy of 30 billion. So here we are around 1/10 of that, right? But obviously also significantly smaller company in that way, right? They are a younger company, interactive brokers, and obviously arguably smaller. We don't have such a long track record. But yeah, of course, revenues, when you see from the previous quarter, revenues were around 227 million and the last quarter was 217 million. So almost a drop by 10 million quarter to quarter. Now that's only been 2 quarters. And keep in mind, in investing and for stockbrokers, there's also seasonality, right? For example, in summer, generally people invest much less than, for example, at the beginning of the year or towards the end of the year. So different periods have more or less investments. And also keep in mind that a lot of the money that eToro, for example, makes is from the fees from cryptocurrency. They're much more crypto-friendly than, for example, interactive brokers. So if the price of crypto goes down, people are less excited, trade less, immediately you will see that in their revenues. As I say already here, the bears, the crypto trades were lower, likely due to market conditions. Now, of course, they also give you always price forecasts and so forth, but frankly, I never look at that because they're just like anyone's guess. Some say it's going to go higher, some say it's going to go lower, some say it's going to stay the same. I mean, nobody knows the future. I think it's always important to make your own homework, understand the company, the fundamentals, and then invest whether you're convinced in it for the long term. I always talk about long-term investing, not moving in and out of positions, but really investing for the long term. And again, well, personally, I would certainly not be investing in eToro. There's nothing against the company. It's just generally stockbrokers are not my favorite way to invest in companies. I think there's a little bit of a lack of moat. Moat is something that makes it really hard to penetrate the market. And I think with stockbrokers, I've seen so many come up and rise through the ranks. So I personally wouldn't feel too comfortable invest in them. And of course, we see, since they launched, this year, it hasn't performed too well against the S&P. But then again, it's still early days, right? Give it some time and we'll see over a couple of years how they shape up. And here we see already some better competitors to look at. So with this, let's actually jump into Robinhood, which has been one of the craziest stocks, I must say, that I personally was close to investing. In the end, I didn't pull the trigger. I can actually tell you, when I got excited, it was at a price point at around, just about $40 over here. And at that time, I already felt it was a bit expensive. Well, I missed out quite a bit on the rally in a few months. Now we're at $115. They just entered the S&P 500. That was another price boost over here. You can see that, the last, last few days when the news broke out, a major price jump here. So yeah, definitely huge. And you can see the market cap sits now at $102 billion. So way more than even interactive brokers. Even though when you purely look, for example, at the revenues, while Robinhood last quarter, so less, but the valuation is absolutely through the roof. Now, obviously, Robinhood, you really invest into their future vision. The CEO is extremely flamboyant, very well spoken, and I think has a great vision, which I also got excited about, to be honest, because they really want to be more than just a stockbroker. They want to be the global player, all things money, from sending it, saving it, investing it, transferring it, like basically doing everything, right? And honestly, the things that are coming out even gets me excited. They used to be mostly focused on the US, but now they also started, establishing and expanding into Europe. We see there where they really came up with some cool crypto offers for now. If soon stocks will come, I think there will be even more competition to some of the local players there. So I think they do a lot of things right. Still, again, I haven't pulled the trigger, haven't invested. But yeah, I must say the growth they have been on, really, really impressive. But of course, at the same time, you see here, insider trading, a lot of them are selling. Now again, could be the same reason I said with interactive brokers, that people just naturally sell over time, or that they feel right now the price is really at an all-time high. Let's take some profits, right? Doesn't mean that they sell all the shares, but at least maybe take some chips off the table and then maybe see how the stock performs going forward. But as you can see, it wasn't always smooth sailing, right? When they started off with the IPO, they really went through a crazy growth phase, but then actually came down for quite a while. And I know a lot of investors were selling out of the stock because, as you can see, for a few years, it went absolutely nowhere. And then they sort of changed the strategy, got a new vision, and now it's been absolutely pumping the price. But for a while, a lot of people got really frustrated here because, as you can see, it really underperformed the S&P 500. So that's also something to keep in mind, right? We only see, the growth and success stories and say, if only I had. But in every stock, there will be periods of difficulties, and that's just part of investing. So definitely really solid company that has performed extremely well in recent times. Almost too fast growth, I would say, but I'm still excited to see where they're going next. And I think we're going to see even more news and innovation coming out of them, which I think is a good thing for us investors, right? How they're pushing things like tokenization or even getting into companies pre-IPO, like they've done with SpaceX or OpenAI, where you as a private investor could participate pre-IPO in them. So again, it didn't turn out too well in the end, but I think that they're pushing the boundaries of what's possible investing. I think is a good thing for all of us long-term because other competitors hopefully will follow accordingly. Then we also have some other companies like SoFi and Charles Schwab over here. But again, they're very US focused, right? And obviously if you're based in the US, you're very familiar with them and you knew that they're going to be stock listed. But let's also look into some stockbrokers, not necessarily from the US, but some of them are listed in the US, some not, but they are basically publicly stock listed companies as well. So next one we're going to look at is the IG group. Yes, IG is not Instagram. It is basically IG stockbroker. And yeah, you can see also by the country where they listed. Some of them are listed in multiple stock exchanges. For example, they're listed in Switzerland or of course in the home market, the London Stock Exchange. So that's what we want to be looking at. And you see over here how the price is developed. And again, in terms of market cap on the smaller scale, £4 billion in this case. So very similar in a way as eToro is. But of course, their revenues are significantly less than Robinhood or Interactive Brokers, but still a respectable 567 million in one quarter. So it's definitely not a tiny player. They definitely earned a spot as a global stockbroker as well, which once again is just reassuring as investors, right? So even if you don't want to necessarily have a US listed broker, you can go with a company like IG to know your money is in good hands. So just as a reminder, that's the broker I talk about here, IG. And of course, nice to see them profitable, year-on-year growth, not major growth, but still, I really want to have a stockbroker that is profitable long-term. Another one is XTB from Poland. They've been also around for a long time, really trusted broker. Unfortunately, right now, they're not listed on tip ranks because it's a Polish stock exchange. Somehow they're not shown, but you can see over here how the stock performed over a longer period, also over a 5-year period, up 332%, so really quite impressive numbers, definitely outperforming the S&P. Dividend yield of 7.2%. That's absolutely unbelievable. Maybe it's something really to look into. And you see over here the income statement, how it grown over time, which is also good. So again, another really trustworthy broker. If you want something more European-based, then I think XTB could definitely be a good choice. And right now, they're also running a nice promotion where you can get some free shares if you sign up. I'll leave a link down in the description below so you can check it out and claim a free stock if you want to sign up with them. All right, I noticed the video is getting a little bit long, so I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of other ones that you can check out yourself if you wanted to. But yeah, another one is basically Degiro, which merged with FlatEx a few years ago. So it's called FlatEx Degiro, and that's the ticker symbol over here. Similar size as IG and eToro at 3 billion euros. Revenues a little bit less, but again, it's just another stockbroker option if you wanted to. I never used Degiro. For me, it looks a little bit clunky and old school, but I know a lot of you might be enjoying it, and it's definitely, a trusted, worthwhile broker to explore as well. Then there's also AJ Bell from the UK. Again, a broker I'm not personally using, but yeah, seems also be a very popular broker that people use, currently valued at £2 billion actually. Again, revenues are growing nicely over time. So yeah, I can't speak, on the broker itself, how it is, but yeah, overall the stock performance obviously shaped up quite well. And of course, they are still profitable, which is also nice to see. And the profits steadily growing. So still on the smaller side compared to some of the other brokers. Then another one is called Freedom Holding, who is behind Freedom24, and it's a big group basically. And again, not a stockbroker I'm using myself personally, but they're stock listed, and that way you can basically follow what they're doing. The market cap is now at $10 billion, so slightly bigger than eToro and some of the other ones we looked at. But again, in terms of earnings and the revenues, a little bit up and down over here, so a bit of a roller coaster in that way when we look at the financials. You will also see that the net income definitely dropped quite a bit. Again, I haven't done the deep dive. What is the reason? Maybe they've wrote off some things and so forth. There can be a lot of, creative ways of, adjusting revenues and profits. That's definitely a little bit, something alarming to look into further. But again, they are stock listed, so you could technically listen to the earnings reports and so forth. They're listed in the US, so that's also good. That's even more transparency, I would say, and usually means that they report on a quarterly basis. Another one is WeBull, also a very popular, stockbroker, mostly in the US. I wish they would expand more globally so I could try it out because I think it looks quite cool. That's yet another one that you could potentially be investing in or use. Either way, they are stock listed, which is of course nice. And lastly, it's a company called Futu. That's the holding, which is basically behind a stockbroker called MooMoo. They're based in the US and Asia, not available in Europe at this stage, but also quite a popular stockbroker out there, known for the low commission. So yeah, they've been growing also, and actually their market cap quite impressive at $25 billion. So more on the higher side, actually similar to Interactive Brokers, and compared to the S&P, definitely outperformed it really quite nicely. And again, also especially in recent times over here. So there you have it, a list of stockbrokers that are publicly listed that you can invest in, but more importantly, also follow the company to see whether they are profitable or not. Doesn't necessarily mean they're better than some private companies, but at least you have more transparency, right? I still use some privately listed companies, for example, Lightyear and Train212. They're not at this stage, publicly listed, but I do trust them. They're very transparent in their communication and they have been doing well. Maybe one day they go public, maybe not, who knows? But I think, having a stock listed company as part of your stockbrokers just gives that added transparency and safety net that you want as investors. Maybe I forgot another one. If I did, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any questions, happy to hear from you. Next up, check out this video over here. As always, thanks for watching. Stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.